Omaha, Nebraska. Nestled against the Missouri River and close to the Iowa border.
$100,000 a year.
That's what you're paid?
Yeah.
The board of directors thinks that you're worth $100,000 a year?
Well, I don't ask them, actually. I ask them.
It's widely known that billionaire investor Warren Buffett, one of the world's richest people, proudly hails from Omaha. His holding company, Berkshire Hathaway, is headquartered here in Omaha, and once every year, over 40,000 people from all corners of this spinning globe converge to listen to Chairman and CEO Warren Buffett and Vice Chairman Charlie Munger preside over the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting.
It's so interesting to watch you work and talk.
I have to give people hope that Warren has 7 more good years in him.
Nicknamed the Woodstock for Capitalists, this year the pilgrimage of shareholders includes your equity mates, Bryce and Alec, as they give you the chance to learn from the world's best investors.
But life has been awfully good to me and Charlie, so we have no complaints.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.
Welcome back to another episode of Equity Mates, coming at you from downtown Omaha for the Equity Mates US tour. Now, if you've just joined us for the very first time, a massive welcome. Congratulations for starting your investing journey. If you are still getting up to speed, we have a podcast called Get Started Investing. Now, a reminder that we are licensed, but we are not aware of your financial circumstances. So any information on this show is for education and entertainment purposes only. But let's kick on. My name is Bryce, and it is with great excitement that not only am I bringing back my regular co-host, Ren. Hello, Ren.
Hey, Bryce.
But we have Maddie from You're in Good Company as well. Maddie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pumped. So we are here in downtown Omaha, sitting in a park. We've just finished the 5K fun run after the Berkshire Hathaway annual AGM. How are you feeling, Ren?
I'm feeling pretty good.
What was your time?
What was my time?
Yeah.
28 minutes?
Respect.
What was your time?
30.03.
Wow, I reckon if we did a poll on who would win the 5K, I certainly wouldn't have won that.
Well, Darcy did win the 5K.
That's crazy. Darcy got an internship at Berkshire Hathaway because he won the Invest in Yourself 5K.
That's it. So we are at the end of the Berkshire sort of weekend of festivities, the Berkshire Bonanza. So in this episode, we're going to bring you inside the AGM with some thoughts of how the days unfolded. Morning session, afternoon session, and then close out with some of our favourite quotes from the big dogs on stage, and close out with our favourite question of the day.
I wish you guys could see what is happening right next to us right now. There is a giant flamingo being deflated right next to where we're recording.
We should say, so Bryce has said we're in downtown Omaha, but let's describe the scene. So we finished the 5K and we're sitting on a park table next to a big grassy area. Few high rises. It's aggressively pleasant at the moment.
As I was saying on the run, Omaha, not a town I would choose to come to, but I've been pleasantly surprised. It has been awesome. But Ren, we wouldn't be able to be here if it weren't for Milford. Yeah. A massive thank you to Milford for sponsoring the Equity Mates US tour. They are a leading New Zealand fund manager, and they are now available for Australian investors and advisors.
Milford's flexible, active management strategies and high-performing, globally experienced investment team aim to deliver strong, long-term returns while managing downside risk.
Milford's team also invest in the same funds as their clients, so you know they are highly motivated because they are on the journey with you.
Find the Milford funds on your trading platform or at milfordasset.com.au, and before you invest, be sure to read the fund's product disclosure statement and target market determination found at milfordasset.com.au. A massive thank you to Milford for sending us over here.
Yes.
To this beautiful part of downtown Omaha.
Oh my goodness, what an experience it has been. And it all started 4 a.m. Saturday morning. 4 a.m. Well, it actually started...
I was going to say, I think my alarm was set for 3:45.
Oh, I actually didn't sleep.
Yeah, it actually started the night before. So we knew that we needed to get to Berkshire early. There's 40,000 people descending on the town to come and watch Warren and Charlie. We
knew we had to get there early because we went to pick up our tickets the day before and the line was literally out the door and down the street.
Yeah. We were in the line for probably almost an hour.
Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
so
we knew there would be some queuing involved.
Yes. So we knew we had to get there early. We were told if it's your first time, you want to make the most of it, get a good seat, get in there, get prepped. So we went to bed the night before.
It's in a basketball stadium.
It's in a basketball stadium. Yeah.
That's how they fit everyone in.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was packed.
Packed, absolutely packed. Maddie, did you sleep the night before?
No.
So you got up at 4 without sleep?
Yeah.
Ren, did you sleep?
I did not.
Did you try?
I tried really
We were
hard.
just too excited.
So both Ren and Maddie were up and at 'em with the rest of the team, Darcy, Sasha, Alf, most of whom had struggled to sleep the night before with
you sleep?
anticipation. I went from 10 through to 1, then was awake for half, and then 1 through to 4.
This guy's living
so
in luxury over here.
I was
Must be
okay. I was
nice.
okay.
Lime scooters are massive over here,
Yeah.
and we've been scooting our way around Omaha.
Scoot, scoot.
And the night before, we'd gone to a steakhouse. Every steakhouse,
Oh my gosh,
every
it's so-
steakhouse in Omaha claims that they've got Warren's favourite
Yeah.
steak.
Yes.
Give them a shout out. Cassios.
Cassio's.
Cassio's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warren's favourite steak.
It's like in Australia, everyone's got the Australia's best pie or the world's best
Yeah,
pie.
every country bakery has. the
Yeah.
best
Here it's everyone's got Warren's favourite
Yeah.
steak.
Yeah.
And we had picked up as many scooters as we could because at 4 a.m. we were going to scoot down to the
Stadium.
stadium.
We were prepared.
But we came out and 2 had already been scooted away, so we were down 2 scooters.
And they don't work before 5 a.m. in the morning, apparently.
Lift your game, Uber.
Yeah, so we couldn't use the scoots. We jumped in an Uber and we were down at 4:30 in line. We were about 25 metres from the front of the line we were in.
We were so close to the front that I kind of thought we'd got there too early. That the
No.
line wasn't
Really?
big enough.
Yeah.
But the line quickly grew behind us.
Yeah.
Very.
So then I felt pretty good.
We
absolutely
actually
nailed
nailed
it.
it.
Yeah.
Sash and I went to the front and we were filming some videos just chatting to people, and the people at the front got there at 1 a.m.
Unbelievable. On reflection, I don't think we needed to get there that early, but it was worth it. We got in.
Bryce and I were running.
We ran in, yeah. We knew which seats we were going to, Bay 216. It's first in, first served. There were no seating numbers.
Stressed. It was so
it would
overwhelming.
have been ridiculous if there were seating numbers, bro. Why would we have got there at 4:30
I
in the
know,
morning?
and they should do it. They should do it. But anyway, we got in, and then we had to wait for about another 2 hours
Yeah.
by the time we got in there. They were giving out free coffee, free food.
Our biggest mistake of the weekend was we had all thought of questions to ask, and then we were so excited / tired, and we forgot to go to the question bays. The way it works is there are 10 question bays, and you go and you get a number, and then it's a lottery at each question bay. And by the time we got there, they were doing the lotteries.
Yeah.
So we didn't get a chance to ask a
Devastating.
question.
So we cooked that.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there, and music's playing, the stadium's filling, and all of a sudden you could start telling some of the team members from Equity Mates were starting to get a little tired. This was when it had barely kicked off and people were starting to say, oh dear, this is going to be a long day.
No.
we have nuts left.
Yes.
For me, the tiredness. So at that point, it was still adrenaline. I was still
Yeah.
going. They would, as you said, free coffee in there. The movie, which we'll get to in a second, the movie, it was like just crescendoing still, and there was like it was fast enough pace that it was going. But it was when Warren and Charlie came out and they started putting up on their balance
Their
sheet,
financial
on the big screen, and they were speaking pretty slowly, and then that was when I started to.
Yeah.
But we'll get there.
So it kicked off at 8:30 with a rendition of, what's the name of the song?
New York.
New York.
I'll never
yeah.
be able to hear it the same again.
I know,
Empire
and so-
State of Mind.
Empire
by
State of
Jay-Z.
Mind,
State of
sorry.
Mind.
Yeah. A cover with a twist. If we find a clip of it, it's going here.
If not, I'll give you a demo. Financial statements, what dreams are made of.
Yeah, good remix.
Now we're at Berkshire.
Yeah, and so then they walked out. We also had the likes of Bill Gates was there. There was a room of Tim Cook was there.
Yeah.
There were some really big dogs down at the front in the crowd.
So cool.
And then we kicked into proceedings. We had 45 minutes of what Warren called a movie, interspersed with ads for all of the subsidiary companies that he owns.
Now, I was told that Warren starred in the ads and that they were like mock ads for these companies with Warren. And I in my mind, I was thinking like Michael Scott appearing in his movie sort of thing. Turns out they weren't. Turns out they were just heaps of ads.
Yeah.
So we had 45 minutes of Apple, MasterCard, burger chains, you name it, interspersed with a movie of Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, and
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Curtis It was weird.
To set the scene, it started with Jamie Lee Curtis in bed with a sheet wrapped around her on the phone, doing sexy talk to Warren.
No. So Warren wanted to invest in internet stocks, and Charlie didn't want to. So Warren called Jamie Lee Curtis to convince him because weird. Charlie has a thing for Jamie Lee Curtis and watches certain scenes of her movies over and over again. So then Jamie Lee Curtis in bed calls Charlie and convinces him.
Yeah, and essentially infers that he was going to cheat on his wife.
Yeah.
With Jamie Lee.
And
it was weird and highly
uncomfortable.
inappropriate.
And then we get pumped with some more ads. And then we get a second part of the movie where Warren goes to Jamie Lee Curtis's house.
Yeah. And tries to sell her knives.
And she just keeps asking about Charlie.
Charlie, yeah.
So
Anyways,
was that the ad? Maybe that was the ad
for
because it
knives.
was the ad for knives. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that finised 45 minutes, and then
honestly wasn't sold any knives.
You don't want to buy the knives.
But I want to watch a Jamie Lee Curtis movie.
Oh, yeah.
and then the guys came on stage. We had Warren, Charlie, Greg.
So Greg runs the everything but insurance.
And he's next in line.
Well, he's going to be the CEO.
Right.
Yeah. And then it was Ajit, who runs the insurance business. And then pretty much the flow of the day, and we're going to get into it in a second, is there's a mix of questions that come from the audience, and then there's a mix that come from online that is curated by CNBC. They tried to get through 60 questions through the day.
They didn't do it.
We started strong.
They got 25 in the morning session, and they didn't tell us how many they got in the afternoon.
They didn't get through it. They started rambling. So let's move into the morning session. There were plenty of questions, as Ren said, 25 questions we got through. So we've pulled a bit of a montage together of some of the highlights from the morning session.
Good morning. Good morning. And thanks for coming. Omaha loves it. I love it. Charlie loves it. We're glad to have you here.
The first question comes in from Randy Jeffs in Irvine, California, and his question is, if Silicon Valley Bank's deposit had not been fully covered, what do you think the economic consequences would have been to the nation?
Well, I would just simply say it would have been catastrophic. And that's why they were covered. And even though the FDIC limit is $250,000, that's the way the statute reads, but that is not the way the U.S. is going to behave any more than they're going to let the debt ceiling cause the world to go into turmoil. And I think it was inevitable. Charlie, do you have any?
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, well.
Hi, Nirav Patel, Haverhill, Massachusetts. Mr. Buffett, Mr. Munger, it seems like you found the sweet spot between being too conservative and too aggressive as investors. Do you ever make bad investment decisions because of your emotions, and what do you do to try to keep that from happening?
I can't recall any time in the history of Berkshire that we made an emotional decision. That I know the movie had Jamie Lee in there, but that was for laughs. I mean, Jamie Lee, she's good, but she's not good enough to get me or Charlie to make an emotional decision. Charlie, I'm sure you have something to add on that. But have we ever made an emotional decision?
No.
No.
I have a questions on AI and robotics. Here's my questions. As AI and robotics continue to advance, what do you believe will be the positive and the negative impact of this technology on both the stock market and society as a whole? And are there any specific industrials and companies that you believe will be most impacted?
Karen, I thank you for asking Charlie that question. Bill Gates brought me out of the latest, maybe not the latest version, but one he thought maybe I could handle, which has to be careful with me in terms of leading me too fast. And it did these remarkable things. It didn't, but it couldn't tell jokes. Bill told me that ahead of time and it prepared me, and it just isn't there. But, you know, things like checking all the legal opinions, you know, since the beginning of time and everything, and eliminating all the side. I mean, it can do all kinds of things. And when something can do all kinds of things, I get a little bit worried. Because I know we won't be able to uninvent it. And, we did invent, for very, very good reason, the atom bomb. Well, Einstein said after the atom bomb, he said, this has changed everything in the world except how men think.
So what are your thoughts on the continued development of new energy? How may the new energy firm achieve better development in future?
So. You've raised a question that I want to just take an extra minute on because it's so important. And I don't really know whether our form of government is ideal at all in terms of solving the problem you describe. We have solved it one time. In World War II, we took a country that was semi-limping along, and we found ourselves in a world war. And what we did in a world war is we brought a bunch of people to Washington at $1 a year, whether it was Sidney Weinberg or Goldman Sachs, you just name them. And we gave them enormous power to reorient the resources of the United States to face the problem that they faced, which was to create a war machine. Okay, Becky.
The next question comes from Ellie Amin Tibet. During an episode of Investing the Templeton Way podcast, Professor Damodaran, who he respects almost as much as Warren and Charlie, mentioned that he is not comfortable with positions becoming a large part of his portfolio. For example, when they reach 25 to 35%. He mentioned that Apple is now 35% of Berkshire's portfolio and thinks that that is near a danger zone. Wonders if Warren and Charlie can comment.
I'd like to make one comment first, but Charlie will come up with...
I think he's out of his mind.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. But Apple is not 35% of Berkshire's portfolio. Berkshire's portfolio includes the railroad, the energy business, Garanimals, you name it, See's Candy. They're all businesses. And, the good thing about Apple is that we can go up. They buy in their stock, and instead of owning 5.6%, they got about 15,700 and some million shares outstanding. They get down to 15.25 billion without us doing anything. We got 6%. So we can't own more than 100% of the BNSF. We can't own more than 100% of Garanimals or See's Candy. But they're all the same. They're good businesses. And to think that our criteria for Apple is different than the other businesses we own. It just happens to be a better business than any we own. Charlie, do you want to add anything to your earlier comment?
Well, one of the inane things that's taught in modern university education is that a vast diversification is absolutely mandatory in investing in common stocks. That is an insane idea. It's not that easy to have a vast plethora of good opportunities that are easily identified. And if you've only got 3, I'd rather be in my best ideas instead of my worst.
I'm Tom Nelson, a podcaster from North Oaks, Minnesota. Charlie, in 2022, you used phrases like really massively stupid, massive kind of ignorance, and crazy to describe what you said was the 30% of Americans hesitant to submit themselves to untested mRNA COVID gene therapy. Do you stand behind those quotes today?
Yeah, sure.
Charlie Munger going bang there to finish the morning session.
He was such a classic. He was so entertaining all day.
Yeah.
He's 99 and he's still sharp.
I was worried at the start because I think it took him almost 45 minutes to say anything.
First word.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was really warming up. I mean, impressive from both of them, to be honest. 93. Warren
Absolutely.
has an answer for everything without pause.
Yeah.
And just love the dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah, there was some great banter between them. They disagreed at certain points as well, which is good to say.
So what we've done, we've pulled some of the best responses from Charlie. It felt like we couldn't leave them out, and so here's a bit of a montage of King Charlie.
We've got our own King Charles here today.
I am personally skeptical of some of the hype that has gone into artificial intelligence. I think old-fashioned intelligence works pretty well. I would not like the thrill of losing my big pile into a small pile. Well, I like my big pile just the way it is.
Well, I like it.
It's a radically different world from the world we started in.
And certainly Charlie's had a lot of experience too with.
Well, at Berkshire, we have a simple problem of estate planning. Just hold the goddamn stock.
Well,
we don't need as many wealth managers as we have. In Japan, everybody's supposed to suck it up and cope, and in America, we complain.
Pardon?
Well, I'm slightly less optimistic than Warren is. I think the best road ahead to human happiness is to expect less. I have nothing to add.
Now, before we take a quick break, I must mention that we're at the point where some of our team members had been up for multiple hours on end, and there were rumours going around that people were going to be heading home for a lunchtime nap. Now, Sasha, our producer, did do that.
Disappointing behaviour.
Went home for a nap. Ren and Alf both left to go for a nap, and rightly so agreed on the way home that it was bucket list moment. Turned around and on their way back had a schooner on the way back.
Went for a beer instead.
Darcy was nodding off throughout the first half. It was a funny sight. So we're just going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to hear them share their thoughts on Elon Musk and go through our favourite questions from the day.
This is Equity Mates in Omaha at the Berkshire Hathaway Annual General Meeting. Bryce and Alec will be back in a moment.
Now, Equity Mates, we want to say a massive thank you to Milford for sponsoring our US trip and getting us over to Omaha so we could see Warren and Charlie in person. If you want to give your portfolio an offensive and defensive strategy, check out Milford's award-winning Milford Australian Absolute Growth Fund.
That's it, Ren. Utilising the skills of Milford's experienced investment team, the Milford Australian Absolute Growth Fund has been focusing on delivering a smoother journey for investors for over half a decade.
With an emphasis on managing risk and generating absolute returns, this lower volatility equity fund can play a key role in a diversified portfolio. The fund strives for long-term capital growth while mitigating the ups and downs typically experienced when investing in the share market.
Find the Milford Australian Absolute Growth Fund, ticker symbol MFOA, on your trading platform or at milfordasset.com.au. And before you invest, be sure to read the fund's product disclosure statement and target market determination found at milfordasset.com.au.
Equity Mates. This is Equity Mates in Omaha at the Berkshire Hathaway Annual General Meeting.
All right, Equity Mates, well, we are here sitting in a park in downtown Omaha. We have just finished the Brooks Invest in Yourself 5K fun run.
Sun's out.
Got my medal on.
Yeah, side note, I am still perplexed why it's a 5K fun run when we're in America and they hate the metric system over here.
You need to get over it, bro. You've been talking about it for 3 days.
No one has
Go and ask them.
No one has given me a good answer, and until someone does, I'm going to keep asking questions. But we are here unpacking what was an epic day yesterday. We saw Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, 92 and 99 years old, respectively.
93, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's turning 93.
93 January 15, I think he said. Was his
they're both
birthday.
January babies.
Yeah.
Charlie Munger, 1st of Jan. They said
was
that
it
yesterday.
Mungers 1st of Jan?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So Buffett's also Jan. There you go.
Anyway, I'm trying to set up our episode here. We have recapped the morning session and heard some questions and answers from the two great investors. We are now over to the afternoon session. As Bryce said, there was a risk of a few team members, myself included, ducking home for a quick power nap. Producer Sasha, who's sitting next to us here, did go home for a quick nap while the two 90-year-olds kept powering on. I guess they didn't get up at 4:30 a.m. though, or 4 a.m.
I mean, to give a sense of why that is the case, there's no control over the questions, so some of them were just like, really, come on, guys, and as you can imagine, two 90-plus sitting on stage, it did drag at times.
Well, no, to give
a bit of rambling.
because we didn't sleep the night before.
Oh, it also...
and we had just flown in from Australia.
It also really... It also did...
Bryce is on his high horse here. He got
also
like 5
did
hours of
drag.
sleep.
I think the real winner is Maddie, who had no sleep and still powered through.
Yeah.
True.
Maddie was MVP. All right, well, let's kick into it. Here's a montage of what happened in the second session.
Mr. Buffett and Mr. Munger. Hi. My name is Daphne. I'm 13 years old, and this is my 6th annual Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. My question is, are we likely to face a time in the future when the US dollar is no longer the global reserve currency? How is Berkshire prepared for this possibility? And what can we do as American citizens to attempt to shelter ourselves from what's beginning to look like the beginnings of de-dollarization?
Well, I should ask you to come up here and answer some questions. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, we are the reserve currency, and I see no option for any other currency to be the reserve currency. And I think that nobody understands the situation better than Jay Powell. And but he's not in control of fiscal policy. And every now and then he drops a few hints. And there was no question that when the pandemic broke out, I mean, it was a semi-war-like situation, but nobody knows how far you can go with the paper currency before it gets out of control. And particularly if you're the world's reserve currency. Nobody knows the answer to that.
The Wall Street Journal reported in March that oil producers are producing less oil and may have reached their peak in the Permian Basin. Given the major positions of both Occidental Petroleum and Chevron in the Permian, would you please explain the rationale for Berkshire's significant holdings of both those companies, considering that future outlook for oil there?
If oil sells at X, you do very well, and if it sells at half of X, your costs are the same, and it doesn't change the production, and it doesn't work as well, but it also brings down the oil production of the United States very fast. So we don't know what oil prices will be, but we do very much like the Occidental position they have, and that's why we financed them a few years ago, and it looked like it was a terrible mistake when the oil market just totally collapsed, and then it changed around, and we bought a lot of the common stock. In the last few months, they've reduced our preferred, which we don't like, obviously. I mean, we'd be disappointed in them if they didn't reduce it. It's intelligent from their standpoint. So we've taken, of the $10 billion preferred, we've gotten maybe $400 or $500 million of it retired at 110% of par. But Vicky Holub she's an extraordinary manager.
My name is Max Joel. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I have a question for Charlie regarding a statement you made in the past. You once mentioned that you would prefer to hire someone with IQ of 130 who believes it's 120 over someone with IQ of 150 who thinks it's 170. I understand that you were referring to Elon Musk. Given the recent success of his ventures, such as Tesla, SpaceX, and Starlink, I'm curious to know if you still hold the view that Elon Musk overestimates himself. Thank you so much.
Well, yes, I think Elon Musk overestimates himself, but he is very talented, so he's overestimating somebody who doesn't need to overestimate to be very talented.
There's a Bill Maher program, about a week old, maybe 2 weeks old, but he interviews Elon, and Elon does a terrific job toe-to-toe with Bill Maher, it's worth watching. And Elon he's a brilliant guy, and I would say that he might score over 170, but he he dreams about things, and his dreams have got a foundation.
He would not have achieved what he has in life if he hadn't tried for unreasonably extreme objectives. He likes taking on the impossible job and doing it. We're different. Warren and I are looking for the easy job that we can identify.
Yeah. If we can do it playing tic-tac-toe, we'll do it, I mean,
we have a wholly different way of going
at life. The whole way, yeah. But we don't want to compete with Elon in a lot of things. I mean,
we don't want that much failure.
Yeah.
This question comes from Lindsay Peter Schumacher in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Does the current size of the Federal Reserve balance sheet concern you? In particular, the result of quantitative easing, the Federal Reserve expanded its balance sheet out of nothing. The net effect, in essence, is a form of single entry accounting, creating something of value out of nothing other than a series of book entries, and wondering what Mr. Munger thinks about this as well.
Well, I don't think the Federal Reserve is the problem, and I think they can't solve the fiscal problem. I do not worry about the Federal Reserve, and I think it's fulfilling the functions for which it was established. I probably would not have been. They have two objectives, and I would not have been one probably that would have changed the inflation objective to 2% a year from zero. I think that I think that if you tell your people that you're shooting to depreciate your currency at 2% a year, that has a lot of implications, although it feels good to a lot of people. A lot of people want a little inflation. One of the most interesting figures to me is currency in circulation. I mean, it is gone. They were saying cash is trash back in 2007 and 8, and all of that cash is going to disappear. Well, if you look at the Federal Reserve balance sheet, it's gone from $800 billion to $2.2 trillion. And most of that's in $100 bills, overwhelmingly. And if you figure it out, I think there's about 50 $100 bills per person, babies, everybody in the United States. And I would really like to know where all of that is.
It's been very extreme. I think that you could be pretty extreme in fighting depressions and so forth if you reverted afterwards to a period of some discipline. But if you're some discipline, but if you're going to just keep borrowing, printing money and spending it, I think eventually it causes bad trouble.
Well, if we're getting into confession time, I have to tell you it's 3:30, so we don't want to keep going on. Who knows what we'll be saying in another half hour? So, so I thank you all very much for coming. At 4:30, we will have the shareholders meeting here.
So it was a quick finish there from Warren. We were pretty stoked because it meant we could either hit the hay or go and have some drinks at the Hilton, which was the place to be.
Yeah.
But let's close out our episode with a question each that we found. Let's close the episode with one of our favourite questions from the day. Maddie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I think my favourite question of the day was the effect of AI on value investors.
My name is Jala Z. I'm from Santa Clara, California. And my question is to Charlie and Warren. Given the rise of disruptive technologies that can improve productivity significantly, and AI being one of them, how do you envision the future of value investing in this new era? And what adaptations or new principles do you think investors should adopt? And any recommendations for investors to remain successful in this rapid changing landscape? Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to take that one. I think value investors are going to have a harder time now that there's so many of them competing for a diminished bunch of opportunities. So my advice to value investors is to get used to making less.
And Charlie has been telling me the same thing the whole time we've known each other. I mean, we get along wonderfully because
So we are making less.
Yeah, well, but that mostly I think is
We
because
did
it's
better
larger.
when we were younger. And
No, we never thought we could manage 508 billion.
No,
or what,
we
or
never
five.
did.
But I would argue that there's going to be plenty of opportunities, and part of the reason there are going to be plenty of opportunities, the tech doesn't make any difference or any of that. I mean, if you look at how the world's changed in the years since 1942 when I started, you'd say, well, how does a kid that doesn't know anything about airplanes, that doesn't know anything about engines and cars, and doesn't know anything about electricity and all that? But that really isn't that's not the world changing doesn't, or new things coming along don't take away the opportunities. What gives you opportunities is other people doing dumb things. And it's that. And I would say that, well, the 58 years we've been running Berkshire, I would say there's been a great increase in the number of people doing dumb things, and they do big dumb things, and the reason they do it to some extent is because they can get money from other people so much easier than when we started. So you could start 10 or 15 dumb insurance companies in the last 10 years, and you could become rich if you were adroit at it, whether the business succeeded or not, and the underwriters got paid, and the lawyers got paid, and that creates, if that's done on a large scale, which it couldn't be done 58 years ago, you couldn't get the money to do some of the dumb things that we wanted to do, fortunately. So I think that investing has disappeared so much from this huge capitalistic market that anybody can play in, but that the big money is in selling other people ideas. It isn't outperforming. And I think if you don't run too much money, which we do, but if you're running small amounts of money, I think the opportunities will be greater. But then Charlie and I have always differed on this subject. He likes to tell me how gloomy the world is, and I like to tell him we'll find something. And so far we've both been kind of right. Charlie, will you budge an inch on that or not?
So I feel like this has been a question on my mind for a little while now. I know that with technology changing so rapidly at the moment, and it feels extra relevant at the moment with the latest developments in AI, but how do we value invest in this environment when things are growing so rapidly? And that really feels like where the biggest opportunities are in terms of investing, I guess, thematics.
Speaking of opportunities, they kept saying throughout the day that there are less opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also a function of how big they are.
Yeah, they have so much cash.
Yeah.
So much cash.
I think in investing, like what works in investing is constantly changing. And, even everyone talks about Ben Graham's style of investing, and everyone talks about security analysis as like the seminal book that everyone should read. Less people talk about the fact that Ben Graham, when he was close to dying, had walked back and he said, the style of investing that I wrote about doesn't work anymore.
Done.
Yeah. And then, that whole like cigar butts, net value, true value investing has kind of been arbitraged away because of all this technology. And
yeah. Well, Charlie did say that value investors need to get used to making less money.
Yeah.
But there's a whole new breed of value investors, which they're kind of like growth value investors. Yeah. It's cheap based on what it's going to be in 3 years' time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Warren's answer to the question was like, the way to value invest or the way that you can make money is because there are so many people doing dumb things.
Yeah, and Charlie said there are a lot of smart people out there with money, which is true, but there are a lot of dumb people with money as well. Yeah.
Munger also had an interesting take on AI generally. One of his quick quips on a throw from Buffett for his thoughts on AI was, I think old-fashioned intelligence works pretty well.
Yeah. Or human
Do you reckon he's
intelligence?
ever used ChatGPT?
That's what I was just about to ask.
Definitely not.
No.
Have you seen their website?
But surely someone's showed it to him.
I doubt.
Well, he was
really?
saying that Gates shows them the latest stuff.
God, it's such a
True,
flex,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it?
And we were
Gates,
talking with
would've
Mark Nelson afterwards at the Hilton Bar, and he's the executive chairman of Caledonia, and is fortunate enough to be in the Breakfast Club with
So cool.
with Munger every week. And he was speaking to Gates at a dinner the night before, and Gates was giving him the down low on how they're quickly taking market share over Google. So that was some good insight.
God, that was. Do you know what? That catch up with Mark is probably some of my favourite chat of the day.
I know.
Yeah, but have you seen the leaks Google memo? They're
No.
both losing market share to Facebook in
What?
the AI race.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Because Facebook's AI chatbot is open source, and both Google and Microsoft will OpenAI is closed source. It's like closed. And anyway, yeah, Meta, killing it at the moment.
Wow. Wow.
My final takeaway from this whole thing, though, is everyone who asked them a question asked them a question as if they had the answer to everything. And it's like these guys are two of the world's greatest investors, history's greatest investors. But like to think that they're experts on like US-China relations, or in this instance, like the effect that new
AI.
technology is going to have on investing.
Yeah.
Part of me was just like, there are probably better people. Bill Gates would have a better
Yeah.
answer.
Of course, but I
you
think
gotta
it's
give-
interesting to hear their perspective, given they have been around so long.
Of course.
Yeah.
And give particularly to Buffett, like it was never I'm not going to try and answer that. Like he would always have at least 10 minutes on
Whereas
something.
Charlie somehow
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing.
Nothing to add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bryce, what about you? What was your biggest takeaway from the day?
Biggest takeaway from the day. So there was a question towards the end of the day around their position in Paramount. That is one thing that my actual biggest takeaway is I left the day feeling like I didn't really get a lot of insight in their portfolio because they refused to, obviously, fair call, actually talk about their positionings.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, like they spoke about Apple, which was good, but like, yeah, they were pretty caged around like, obviously what they're currently looking at, and like they don't talk a lot about what they're doing. They talk about current position, but I felt like didn't really leave.
Because
with
ideal world, you'd be like, what would you invest?
Yeah, what are you looking
100,000
at?
in now?
I think at one stage Warren said we're not your financial advisor or something.
Yeah.
But I think we did get some insight. So the biggest question is one of their biggest moves over the last 6 months has been building up this position in Occidental, the shale oil company, and they said we're not going to buy it. We got like 20% and we want to remain minority shareholders, which was like, if you went on CNBC after that, was sort of like, oh, they actually did tell us something.
Yeah.
But they just don't do a lot. Like which none of us should. We should all be as patient and as slow moving as them. But yeah.
Anyway, so right towards the end of the day, there was a question around their position in Paramount Plus, which is suffering at the moment. I think stock dropped, what did they say, 25% last week. Off the back of poor performance. But more broadly, what was interesting was their commentary around streaming services as a business. So let's have a listen.
Berkshire owns about 94 million shares of Paramount Global as of the last published data. This asset-rich company has disappointed on recent quarterly earnings reports and just this week slashed its dividend by 80%. How do you see the streaming wars evolving, and do you still have conviction in your investment thesis? Is your investment thesis based on the company being an acquisition target or based on its fundamentals?
Yeah, I will say this. It's not good news when any company passes its dividend or cuts its dividend dramatically. And the streaming business is extremely interesting to watch because there's people love to use their eyeballs watching, being entertained on a screen in front of them or a phone or whatever it may be. But there's a lot of companies doing it, and you need fewer companies or you need higher prices. Well, you need higher prices or it doesn't work.
So thoughts and feelings, nothing new there, I don't think, from that hasn't already been sort of spoken about, but they're going to stay strong with Paramount Plus. Very competitive industry. Bit of a chit-chat around owning the real thing, movies.
Yeah. to that comment around they're going to stay strong, and to what you were saying earlier about them not giving us a lot of insight. Like, it wouldn't surprise me, based on what they were saying, there's no competitive advantage here and your profits are determined by your competitors. Wouldn't surprise me if that got the flick at some point.
Yeah.
I think the perspective to make streaming a more interesting or sort of compelling investment around, you just need less companies and higher prices, and the fact that they're all in competition with each other is just continuing to drive the prices down. It makes a lot of sense, right? Like, where's the moat, which is what they always talk about.
Well, he said something around, like, there's a bunch of them that just don't want to quit.
Yeah.
So everyone's just burning cash.
Yeah. Surely, like, it's been, like, the call for the last 2 years, but surely some mergers and acquisitions happen in this space.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to ever get a content moat in streaming, because someone will always be able to create the next Game of Thrones or the next,
yes to mergers and acquisitions, but then the point that they made was that they're all such big players in this space. Like, they're all massive companies who are behind these streaming services.
Yeah, well, I think where you get the moat is in, like, Amazon Prime or
Disney is the one that they used as an example, because they get the moat from the content that they have.
Yeah.
So Berkshire own 15% of Paramount. They started buying in 2022, but have lost a bucket load. I think the stock's down about 50% since they started buying. So ouch. Anyway, Ren, what was your favourite?
Yeah, so there was a few questions about climate change, and in the morning session, Greg Abel, who runs all their portfolio businesses, but has really driven Berkshire Hathaway Energy and really made it a big player, got some questions around renewable investment and stuff like that. But I think the most challenging question, shall we say, was actually from an Iowa high schooler in the afternoon session. So Warren couldn't hide behind Greg anymore. And so she challenged them, I guess, on how Berkshire Hathaway Energy is responding to the challenge of climate change.
Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Hayes, and I'm a high schooler from Iowa. You said earlier today that transitioning to renewable energy has the people and capital to support it. So with enough investment in renewables, the development of energy storage technology to soon meet Iowa's energy needs, and support from the government system through Inflation Reduction Act funding, why hasn't Berkshire Hathaway Energy truly invested in the future by accelerating retirement plans for the coal plants, which have high operating costs and are currently Iowa's biggest carbon polluter and will continue to be until they're finally retired in 2049, which is too late to be curbing emissions according to the IPCC?
Yeah, it's very interesting. We in Iowa, we have actually produced more wind energy than is used, the total amount of energy used by our customers, but it's not producible 24 hours a day necessarily. So there's problems. And incidentally, in Iowa, a significant majority of counties welcome us when we come around and want to put in wind, and some don't want it. I mean, there's a not in my backyard someplace. There's other places where they love the money they get from a small plot of ground, and people they like the taxes that are paid. But I would say that if there's one state in the union that stands out in the development, it's Iowa. But what's also interesting in Iowa is that we have one other major company. There's always loads of little co-ops and all kinds of things that sell electricity. But we have one major competitor, and our prices are significantly lower. And as a matter of fact, we are now in the Omaha Public Power District, and 3 miles or 4 miles away, we're selling electricity in Iowa. And we are selling it cheaper, even though public power was invented in Nebraska and has been I think it's, George Norris did it back in the 1930s. And, Nebraska's resisted, to some extent, wind power more than Iowa, but like I say, our competitor, or alternate source, hasn't really pursued it the way we have. But I would say that our record in wind and solar has not been topped by any utility in the United States. And of course, it's been aided by the fact that most utilities pay out 70 or 80% of earnings in dividends. And we haven't taken a common dividend out of, we had a little tiny preferred, we haven't taken a common dividend out of it. For 20 years, we reinvested, I don't know how many billion. That's the reason why the earnings have gone from 200 million to 4 billion, but we're not earning a higher rate of return on capital than we were when we started. We just put way more capital into the business as we went along, kept reinvesting the capital. So I wish Greg were here to tell you more details about it, but I would say that we'd really put up Berkshire Hathaway Energy's record against any utility in the United States. Charlie, you've watched it.
Well, I have, and I'm not personally at all sure how bad the global warming is going to be. I don't think anybody knows for sure whether the seas are going to rise 2 inches or 20 feet. And so I think there's a lot of false claims here in a world where much is not known.
Yeah, Wyoming.
I mean, the number one takeaway there has to be Charlie's feelings about climate change.
Yeah.
He got a big round of applause from it as well.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable.
I mean, they got round of
weird.
applause with bloody everything.
They were. At that point, I was like, do we just clap every time he talks?
It's a bit of a cult. But yeah, I think...
there were questions where they just finished and they went on, and then Warren was like, all right, base 6. Like, that was a clap for his view on climate change. That wasn't just a clap for Charlie.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, don't agree with it.
Don't agree.
Yeah, I don't think they responded to any of the climate stuff well.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
A lot of waffle.
I do remember watching a doco back in the day about, I think, the energy grid in Nevada and how Berkshire Hathaway Energy was really challenging a lot of the investments that were trying to happen in renewables. So I think they've got a bit of a track record of seeing an opportunity in legacy energy infrastructure, which, that's really all they're focused on is earning returns. So in some ways, a leopard can't change their spots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
they did come into the Berkshire. A lot of the media coming into it was a huge expectation on how they would address the climate change piece, because it's something that I think a lot of people have felt they haven't done a very good job at. But I don't think they did too well.
To be fair to Warren, in another answer, he did talk about how he doesn't think there's been any energy company that has invested more in renewables and renewable transition than Berkshire Hathaway Energy. And he said a big reason why that is the case is we don't pay a dividend. So most energy companies that they're competing with pay out 80% of their profits in dividends. Berkshire reinvest all of their profits or keep them on their balance sheet, which is now, $135 billion in short-term investments.
Yeah.
And that does mean that they can invest more. And so, they've got a fair argument that whilst Charlie may not think it's as bad, they're doing more than most of their competitors.
There were some interesting comments around there being, we're very aware of the problem. We know what needs to be fixed. We know what we need to do to get there. We've got the people and the capital to do it, but for some reason we're not doing it. And he was sort of talking about how he actually spoke a lot about like World War II throughout the day.
Much.
But he talked about that being a point in history in which there was so much like uplift and change that it allowed sort of a lot of, I guess, development to happen off the back of that. And he seemed to be of the impression that it would take something really big to happen sort of in society. And I guess COVID, you could argue, has done a little bit there. But in order for us to really sort of make that transition to renewable energy.
All right, so that feels like a good point to wrap it. Any final thoughts of the day? Any big learnings, any big changes you're going to make to how you invested? Anything that would surprise people who didn't watch it or just watched it on TV?
I don't know if this would surprise people, but Charlie did not stop eating lollies all day. He was just munching constantly.
Yeah. I thought it was just an awesome day. I think you asked me at the end at the bar, Maddie, or maybe it was Sasha, if it met my expectations. I think the overall couple of days has exceeded. There were moments throughout the day that were obviously low points and a bit, everyone was a bit quiet and whatnot. We really pushed through, but overall, an epic experience. I don't think I would go so early next year. I don't think it really matters where you sit in the crowd too much, as long as you're not behind the stage. But that was probably my key takeaway for 2024.
Yeah. So we're coming back?
Oh, I'd love to come back.
Well, I guess we can only come back if Milford help us get there again. So let's close this out by saying another massive thank you to Milford for getting us to Omaha and letting us not quite meet our heroes, but at least see them in person.
We got damn close. Milford are a leading New Zealand fund manager, and they are now available for Australian investors and advisors. Milford's talented and globally experienced investment team aim to deliver strong long-term returns while managing downside risks, and they also invest in the same funds as their clients.
You can strive for a smoother investing journey with Milford's experienced active management and their award-winning Milford Australian Absolute Growth Fund, ticker symbol MFOA.
So find the Milford Australian Absolute Growth Fund and other Milford funds on your trading platforms or at milfordasset.com.au. And remember, before you invest, be sure to read the fund's product disclosure statement and target market determination found at milfordasset.com.au. Well, guys, first outdoor live podcast other than the very first one we did back in 2017, Ren, bringing back a lot of memories, sitting outside recording. It's been awesome down here in Omaha. Yeah, it's quite nice. Bit of a different vibe. Maddie, thank you so much for joining us. And hello to all of the You're in Good Company crew that are listening. You can follow along on the continued journey of us on tour on both of our social feeds. And over the next month, we're going to be bringing plenty of content from the tour. We've got our Wealth Builders series kicking off on Thursday, where we're looking at some of Warren's biggest investments and the lessons we've learnt. And then next Monday, we're going to be coming at you from New York City. We're going to be interviewing some fund managers over there and heading down to Wall Street. So looking forward to it. Massive shout out to Milford as well for supporting the Equity Mates US tour. But guys, we'll leave it there.
Sounds good.
See ya.
You have been listening to an Equity Mates Media production. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. This podcast is intended for education and entertainment purposes. Any advice is general advice only and has not taken into account your personal financial circumstances, needs, or objectives. Before acting on general advice, you should consider if it is relevant to your needs and read the relevant product disclosure statement. And if you're unsure, please speak to a financial professional. The hosts of this podcast and their guests may have positions in the companies mentioned. Equity Mates Media operates under an Australian Financial Services Licence 540697.